Hello, my name is Reiko Osoroshi. On this channel, I introduce Japanese ghost stories. Today, I will introduce two ghost stories, Rinfon and Ojama Michikusa. Rinfon. The other day, my girlfriend and I, both antique enthusiasts, decided to go for a drive and visit antique shops and thrift stores. I'm also into things like reggae and vintage clothing, collecting rare finds like old Nintendo game cartridges and vintage clothes. Though our interests differed, the kinds of shops we visited were the same, so we were both excitedly exploring the stores. We managed to find a few great items each, our excitement still high as we continued driving. As we drove, I noticed a rundown little shop. Wow, you wouldn't expect to find things like a gold version of Abaka no Kyutaro in such a shabby place, I said, enthusiastically. My girlfriend, looking unimpressed, and I entered the shop. It was no bigger than a convenience store and quite cheap looking. It mainly had old books, with only a few pieces of furniture and vintage clothing. Among them was a single copy of the Famicom game, Kyukyoku Harakiri Stadium, sitting on the shelf covered in dust as if it were placed there just to tease people. I was about to suggest that we leave when my girlfriend suddenly exclaimed, "Ah!" I rushed over to her, and she was standing in front of a basket filled with stuffed animals and figurines. "Did you find something interesting? This is amazing." She said that and pulled out a dodecahedron ornament from the bottom of the basket. It had been squeezed between stuffed animals and other objects, almost as if it had been deliberately hidden. "What's this? A valuable piece? I'm not sure, but I might buy this figurine." Well, it was true that the ornament had a calm and indescribable color scheme, and as an object, it didn't seem bad at all. I suggested that I should buy it if it was inexpensive. I took the dodecahedron to the counter. An old man, looking rather disheveled, was sitting there reading an old book. "Excuse me, how much is this?" At that moment, I noticed it. The old man lifted his gaze from the book and looked at the dodecahedron. His expression briefly changed to one of shock, an expression I can only describe as astonishment, before immediately returning to his normal expression. "Oh, this, well, I wonder how much it was. Just give me a moment, please." He said that and went into the back room, probably his home as well. I heard fragments of an argument between him and an elderly woman who seemed to be his wife. Eventually, he returned with a yellowed scrap of paper. "Well, you see, it's what you might call a toy, named Rinfon. There's a detailed description in this manual." The old man said this, spreading out the yellowed and dirty piece of paper. It seemed pretty old. On the paper was an illustration of the dodecahedron, with Rinfon written next to it, and a sequence depicting its transformation from bear to hawk to fish. There were also inscriptions in a language I couldn't understand. According to the old man, it was written in Latin and English. In this manner, this ornament can transform into various animals. First, hold the Rinfon with both hands, as if you're holding a rice ball, and stroke it around. Following his instructions, my girlfriend held the Rinfon with both hands and stroked it as if she were forming a rice ball. Suddenly, there was a click, and one part of the dodecahedron's face jutted out. "Wow, amazing. Try turning that protruding part or pulling it up higher." As she followed Grandpa's instructions, another face collapsed inward this time. "Wow, it's like a puzzle. You should give it a try too, that's me." Explaining this mechanism in words is really difficult, but have you heard of a toy called Transformers? It was a popular toy from the past where cassette tapes transformed into robots, and handguns and trucks turned into robots. Imagine that. This Rinfon is similar. If you push or twist somewhere on the dodecahedron, it transforms into various animals like bears, hawks, and fish. That's what I want you to imagine. Even I was amazed she was now deeply interested in Rinfon. I thought it was an incredible toy even for me. How much is it?" she asked hesitantly, and I replied, "Well, it's quite old. But even we had forgotten we had it, so how about a special price of 10,000 yen? If we put it on the internet, I think some enthusiasts might even pay hundreds of thousands for it." She was good at negotiating. In the end, she managed to get it down to 6,500 yen and left the store with a satisfied smile. The next day was Monday. After finishing dinner at the restaurant together, we went straight home. Monday, when I got home from work, I received a call from her. "Yu-kun, that Rinfon is amazing. It really feels like a puzzle, transforming into animal shapes. I can't get my mind off it, even at work. Seriously, it's more interesting than some lame TV game. She was excitedly talking one-sidedly. After hanging up the call, I received a photo message. Her hands holding Linfon had shifted, revealing what looked like the head of a bear and 2 legs protruding from Linfon. I was impressed by how well it was made, so I sent a text expressing my thoughts and eventually went to bed. The next day, as I was driving home from work, I received a message from her. It's seriously fun. I stayed up all night playing with Linfon, and I finally made a bear. Come and see. The message was along those lines. With a wry smile, I redirected my car toward her house. Hey, you said you stayed up all night, but did you still go to work? As soon as I arrived, I asked her, and she replied, yeah, I went. But I drank too much coffee and felt sick. On the table, there was Linfon transformed into the shape of a bear, lifting its head slightly with its 4 legs. Whoa, isn't this seriously amazing? I wonder how the mechanism works. It's amazing, right? I'm really into this. The next transformation should be from this bear to a hawk. I'm thinking of trying it out soon. Hey, don't pull an all-nighter again today. You can do it tomorrow, right? Yeah, you're right. We enjoyed a simple home-cooked meal together and went home for the day. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, but Linfon is about the size of a softball. Wednesday. On my way back from work, this time I sent her a message. Did you get enough sleep? And about various things, this and that. In response, I received a message saying, I slept properly yesterday. I'm looking forward to continuing once I get back home. Then it was around 11 p.m. at night. I was engrossed in my PS2 when I received a photo message. I made the hawk. It looks so real. Isn't the person who made this a genius? When I opened the photo message, there was a Linfon transformed into the shape of a hawk with its wings spread. Even to my amateur eyes, it was intricately crafted. There was a hawk that looked like it could take flight any moment. Of course, since it's a toy, it had some imperfections, but it was still very well made. Wow, only the fish is left now. But don't get too carried away and take your time making it, I replied, then eventually went to sleep. Thursday night. When I finished my bath and got out, my phone rang. It was her. Yu-kun, did you just call? No. What's up? For about the past 5 minutes, I've been getting incoming calls every 30 seconds or so. Even when I press to answer, I hear something like the bustling noise of a crowd or a lot of people talking, and then it disconnects right away. You know, when you see an incoming call, it shows normal or no caller ID or public or something, right? But when I see this one, it says from beyond. And I didn't even set up anything like that. It's really creepy. I see. Should you check it out? No, I'm turning off the phone and going to sleep for now. I see. Well, maybe it's just some crossed lines? Oh, by the way, what happened with Linfon? How's the fish transformation going? Oh, yeah, it'll be ready soon. Once it's done, I might let you borrow it, Yu-kun. Sure, I'm looking forward to it. Friday. Curious about the strange phone calls, I called her and decided to go to her house. Linfon was mostly in the shape of a fish, and it seemed that all that was left was to add the dorsal and tail fins to complete it. Did you receive another weird call during the day? Yeah. During my lunch break, my phone rang, and this time it was just a regular no-caller ID call, so I answered it. When I pressed to answer, I heard a chorus of voices saying, pick up, and then it disconnected. Could it still be crossed lines or a prank? How about we go to the Docomo store together tomorrow to check it out? Yeah, let's do that. Afterwards, while we talked about how amazing Linfon was as a toy, we tinkered around trying to complete the fish by adding the dorsal and tail fins. However, we were struggling to figure out how to attach them. We joked about how they might have intentionally made it difficult since it's the last step, and we had a hard time with it. As I started to feel sleepy and knowing that the next day was Saturday, and I had brought a change of clothes with me, I decided to stay overnight at her house. I had a disturbing dream. Numerous naked men and women were crawling up from the depths of a dark valley. I desperately climbed up a cliff to escape. Just a bit more, almost at the top. I could make it. Just as I reached out my hand to the summit, a woman grabbed my leg. Take me with you. I woke up drenched in sweat. It was just past 5 a.m. Since I couldn't fall back asleep, I lay on the futon until she got up, lost in thought. Saturday. We went to the mobile phone shop, but we couldn't figure out any significant cause for the strange calls. Then, as a change of mood, we decided to get a fortune-telling reading. There was a well-known fortune teller in town called Cat Lady, who was renowned for her accuracy. She had many cats at her home and conducted her fortune-telling sessions there. However, it seemed that reservations were necessary. When we called, we were fortunate to get an appointment for the following Sunday. We spent that day casually shopping and stayed out overnight. Sunday, we arrived at the cat lady's house in the early afternoon. I rang the doorbell. Yes, I'm you, I had a reservation. I'm open, please come in. Upon opening the door, a cat was in the hallway. It hissed and defensively scurried away as it saw us, retreating further inside. As we walked down the hallway, we found Cat Lady in a Western-style room, surrounded by cats, quite literally. The moment we entered, they all collectively hissed with what seemed like an intensity reserved for archenemies and scattered away in all directions. It was quite an unsettling sight. Glancing at each other in puzzled annoyance, Cat Lady finally spoke, "I'm sorry, but please leave." Slightly irritated, I inquired about the situation, and she explained, "The reason I have so many cats is because they are sensitive to certain things. The cats help me distinguish between people who are good and bad for fortune-telling." This kind of reaction is unprecedented. For some reason, a thought crossed my mind, and I told her about the strange phone calls I received and the disturbing dream I had seen. In response, she reluctantly said, "Behind your girlfriend. I can see something like an animal-like object. Dispose of it immediately." When I asked what was wrong with it, she turned away, saying, "Please, just leave. I don't want to say or see anymore." Her face was also turning pale. Persistently, I pressed on, "What is that thing? Is it cursed or something? Is it a common thing you find in antiques?" I kept asking repeatedly until the fortune teller stood up. "It's a condensed miniature version of hell. It's the gate to hell. Dispose of it immediately. Leave now. What about the money? Do not enter." The terrified expression on the fortune teller's face at that moment was more frightening than anything else. That day, after returning to her house, we immediately wrapped Rinfon and the yellowed instruction manual in newspaper, secured it with tape, and threw it in the trash bin. The garbage was collected in due time, and since then, no such strange occurrences happened. A few weeks later, when I went to her house, she, who also liked anagrams, picked up a pen and paper and began to say, "You know, Rinfon is the spelling of Rinfone, right? Maybe it's a coincidence or a stretch, but if you rearrange the letters, it can also spell inferno. Like, hell. Ha ha ha, it's just a coincidence, no way. I wonder what would have happened if the fish transformation had been completed. Ha ha ha." All I could manage was a dry laugh. Unconsciously, I found myself hoping that it was indeed disposed of in the garbage, and that there was no second one. Ojama Michikusa. It was June, 7 years ago, around 10 p.m. when my home phone rang. The ring startled me more than usual. It was from my musician friend, Baba-kun. "Something strange is going on. I can't explain over the phone. I know it's late, but could you come and see for yourself?" he said. Baba-kun had recently moved to a house near Kawago to use as a band retreat. His peculiar tone gave me an unsettling feeling, but because of our long-standing friendship, I decided to go and check it out. As I was about to leave and stepped into the hallway, someone suddenly knocked on the front door. When I opened it, my friend Chino-kun was standing there, holding a large bottle of sake. I explained that I was heading out at Baba-kun's request. "Well, since I know Baba-kun too, and I don't think you should go alone, I'll come along," Chino-kun insisted. We got into a car and discussed the situation during the ride. It turned out that Chino-kun was just feeling idle that day and suddenly wanted to see my face. Being perceptive, he immediately sensed something was amiss when he saw me. Baba-kun had a history of getting involved in various incidents due to his unsettled nature. Chino-kun had learned about Baba-kun's turbulent life through me and agreed that this time felt different. About 30 minutes into the drive, Chino-kun suddenly exclaimed, "Whoa." When I asked what happened, he explained, for a split second, there was a gigantic red statue, about 50 meters tall, resembling a neo-guardian, standing in the middle of the road with a "don't come" posture. He described it this way because he didn't possess much knowledge about Buddhist statues at that time and used the term neo-guardian. However, upon checking a photo book later, it was found to closely resemble a standing statue of Fudomayu, one of the wisdom kings. Since it was my first visit, I had Baba-kun pick me up at the nearest station. At the station, I asked, "What's going on?" He responded, "I got a great deal on a 2-story house, Thought it was a good place, but something feels strange. Just come and see, and then give me your opinion. Upon arrival, we found ourselves in a house located within a small residential neighborhood of around 10 houses. Surrounded on 3 sides by a thicket of trees, with a highway running in front of it. It stood at the open corner facing the road, and the house was about 10 years old. Stepping out of the car, I immediately snapped a picture of the house with my camera. It was a humid night, during a break from the rainy season. I've fallen into something, was my honest impression at that moment. Let's list some points that caught my attention from the exterior of the house. All the weeds within the property were growing outward. There were 3 trees about the same height as the second floor eaves at the southwest corner of the property. Out of the 3 trees, one from the south had withered. It was a part of a housing development, so it should have been built around the same time as the surrounding houses. But it was the only one showing significant signs of wear and tear. Aware of the next-door neighbor peering through the screen door, we entered the house. "It's stuffy in here, but well, come on in," Baba-kun said, inviting us to step inside the entrance. It's stinky, what is it?" That was my initial impression upon seeing the interior. Chino-kun was quick to ask, "Do they have cats?" I nodded in agreement, and Baba-kun explained, "We don't have any, but there are a few around the neighborhood." Smell it? I knew it. No matter how much we clean, the smell won't go away. Upon entering through the entrance, the staircase was immediately to the left. A hallway extended straight ahead from the entrance, west to east, with the dining kitchen at the end on the right southeast, and the bathroom on the left northeast. We were guided by Baba-kun to the band's practice room on the right southwest of the first floor. "It's cool. No, cold. Is there an air conditioner?" "Oh no, there isn't one." "What about the windows?" "They're closed." Something peculiar outside the window caught my eye. Upon closer inspection, it was a dead tree. This room is the most normal on the first floor. Finally, when the manager girl was preparing tea, Baba-kun started to talk. The gist of Baba-kun's story was as follows. When sleeping on the first floor, he sometimes has nightmares. While everyone is on the second floor, they hear voices coming from downstairs. They hear footsteps coming up from the first floor, but nobody is there. When they moved in, a cased set of golf clubs was left in the closet. Everyone avoids going to the kitchen. Along with these phenomena, he shared an experience related to the cats. "Yesterday, when I was on the second floor, I heard noises downstairs, so I thought the guy who had gone shopping might have returned. I went downstairs to check. But, when I got there, the front door was open, yet there was no one around. Upon closer inspection, a local cat had sneaked in. However, catching it was proving difficult. When I tried to grab it, it resisted by scratching and struggling desperately. Check out these scratch marks." So, I opened the window for it. But then, even though I chased it, the cat ignored the window. And then, the cat suddenly acted strangely in the entranceway. As soon as it descended to the entrance, it abruptly stopped and suddenly changed direction. Then it slipped past me and raced up the stairs, escaping over the roof from the second floor window. Well, about its behavior at the entrance, it was truly odd. It was as if there was something terrifying in front of it, and it panicked and turned back. That's the kind of feeling it gave me. It seemed much more scared of whatever it encountered there than of me chasing it. After hearing this story, Chino-kun commented, "Maybe that cat was being manipulated by something." I also felt during the story that the corridor felt like it was being traversed back and forth by a cat. That cat just happened to be acting that way, but it's like there's a normally absent cat wandering around, I said. Chino-kun quickly added, "Yeah, I still feel like a shadow passed by in the hallway just now." Our opinions were in agreement. However, what mattered most was Chino-kun's earlier comment. Intending to use his intuition, I asked him, "But, it's not the cat itself. How about we go check the kitchen?" "Nah, not now. Since we have a day off the day after tomorrow, let's come during daylight." After this, we listened to Baba-kun's story a bit more, heard a demo of their new song, refrained from entering the kitchen, and left around 2 a.m. After dropping off Chino-kun, I returned home. I sensed someone in my younger brother's room, but there shouldn't be anyone there. I turned on the light and looked. As expected, there was no one there. "It's here now," I strongly thought, "stay away," and confirmed the presence vanished before going to bed. The next day, I had the film developed. It would be ready by the evening. When I arrived at work, there was a message from my younger brother, Daiki. "Coming back tonight. Bringing a friend. Buy some alcohol." Since my brother's workplace was far, he rented a place nearby and returned once a month for a change of clothes. On my way back from work, I picked up the developed prints. At home, I first checked the negatives for developing irregularities, light leaks, and scratches, and then carefully examined the prints. The dead tree stood out, and several shots gave an eerie impression. And, upon closer inspection, on one of the shots, I found a small red dot resembling a lit bulb on the southwest corner of the block wall in the background. It appeared only in that shot, not in other shots from the same angle. It was also clearly captured on the negative, ruling out a processing error. Red generally signifies negative energy. A small dot signifies a strong spiritual presence, judging from the color. And the conclusion I reached: it must be a curse. Just as I finished looking at the photos, Daiki appeared with his friend Inomoto. "Hey, what did you take pictures of?" "Ghost." "Yeah. Wow, really? Show me. Is it a haunted house?" Inomoto, who had been observing the exchange between me and Daiki, leaned in and asked, "Can I see it?" As he looked through the photos, Daiki filled Inomoto in on the situation. They were former kendo club members from their school days, and interestingly, Inomoto was known to have strong spiritual sensitivity. He worked part-time at a temple related to esoteric Buddhism. According to him, red things like this indicate divine punishment. It's quite strong. I can't say anything reckless about it. Can I borrow this for 2 to 3 days? I'll consult my master and have a look. It's on me because I'm offering to do it. Since I had the negatives, it was decided that I should have duplicates made for Chino-kun. So, in addition to the specific photo, I handed several other prints to Inomoto. Inomoto stayed late and spent the night, while Daiki showed interest in Baba-kun's house. The next morning. "Today, you're going with Chino, right?" "I have the day off tomorrow, so I'll join you," Daiki said. "Be careful. You might get possessed," I warned. "Maybe it's because I practice martial arts, but I'm okay with that kind of thing," he replied. At the promised noon, Chino-kun showed up, and the three of us headed to House B. I was curious about the cat, so I bought a pack of bonito flakes on the way. When we reached Baba-kun's house, the band was in the middle of practicing. They said they would finish soon, so while waiting, we decided to explore the surroundings. It seemed like the land had been cleared from a forested area and developed into residential lots. There were some old-looking farmhouses scattered nearby. "You don't really need to cut down trees when there's farmland around," I said. I became increasingly intrigued by the history of the land. As we walked around for a while, I suddenly felt something. I sensed water. It was like a pond or a well. Water accumulated somewhere. I couldn't pinpoint the exact location, but it felt like there used to be one somewhere. Eventually, Baba-kun's house fell silent, and a girl Funei-san came out to call us. Wow, there's an intense hostility. When I close my eyes, I feel like someone's about to attack me with a slash any moment. Also, the old injury in my back hurts. It's like targeting my weak spot. This feeling. I haven't had it since our school trip to Sekigahara. Normally, I'm fine with these things. But this place is different. "What's here?" Daiki, my younger brother, said. "It's dangerous to see things here. Let's wait until we're back," I replied. I realized this wasn't something like a cat. It was beyond that. So, I suggested to Baba-kun that he should consider moving. Just as I was about to take a few more pictures, Chino-kun mentioned, "I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. So I'll be in the other room drinking tea," and left the kitchen. "I'll do the same," I added. Daiki also said he was going to do the same, so I followed suit. When we returned to the practice room, Baba-kun was lying down, seemingly asleep. He said he worked on the band's score until dawn. "But it doesn't seem like he's getting peaceful sleep," Funai-san commented while draping a towel blanket over Baba-kun. After a while, Baba-kun, lying face down, started to moan in his sleep. He muttered something like, yeah. When I looked closely at Baba-kun, I sensed something. It seemed like there was a shadowy figure over him. I turned to Chino-kun and asked, "What do you think? Could this be sleep paralysis? Is he being pinned down?" Chino-kun offered. Chino-kun's intuition is usually reliable. I became convinced. Baba-kun is strong-willed, proactive, and powerful when awake. Therefore, it's likely that whatever it is, it's taking advantage of his moments of weakness, like when he's tired and drowsy, to possess him. Funai-san, should I wake him up? She shook Baba-kun's shoulder. But he didn't wake up. He remained just as he was. Wait, if he's lost consciousness, it might not be good to wake him up. Returning might fail. Don't force him to wake up. I stopped Funai-san, who was about to shake him vigorously. At that moment, Chino-kun said, "Hey, something moved. Over Baba-kun's back." He began and tried to reach out his hand towards a point about 30 centimeters above Baba-kun's back. Whoa. He quickly pulled his hand back. Ah, that was creepy. Come on, try it. He urged me. Surprisingly, Chino-kun also saw it. This is bad. We might be affected too. While thinking that, I followed his lead. I cautiously extended my hand. It passed through the outline of the moving shadow and entered it. It felt cold, like when reaching into a refrigerator. Still, it didn't react. I gently pulled my hand back. The coldness disappeared. It didn't move. See? It's cold, right? Chino-kun sought confirmation. There shouldn't be any drafts passing through. It really is here after all. Chino-kun was unusually serious. Since whatever was in there hadn't retreated yet, I performed the 9-syllable sealing charm. And then, its presence vanished. Well, it disappeared temporarily. After I finished, I shook Baba-kun. He woke up immediately. As soon as he did, he said, "Ah, I'm tired. Was I groaning in my sleep? You shook me, didn't you?" I understood, but I can't seem to wake up from this dream. This might be the 4th time. I only have this same dream. I've never had it on the 2nd floor, it's only when I sleep here. Was I saying anything in my sleep? He quickly talked while rubbing his eyes. Yeah, you were saying something like that, Funai-san replied. Is that so? I was. Shaking my head, saying, yeah. At least that's what I thought. Can you listen to it? Saying that, Baba-kun started to talk about his dream. The essence of Baba-kun's dream was as follows. I suddenly find myself sitting in a parlor. It's a spacious room, about 30 tatami mats in size. There are no electric lights, and the structure is old-fashioned. It's like a set from a period drama. After a while, a little girl appears. She's about 5 or 6 years old and adorable. She's wearing a reddish kimono, like she's dressed for a Shichigo-san ceremony. Her hair is neatly done as well. In the context of a period drama, she would be playing the role of a samurai's daughter. The girl pleads, "Big brother, let's play. I want to play with her, but I mustn't move from this spot. I have a sense of unease that if I move, I might not be able to return." So, I advised the little girl to go play outside. However, she wouldn't listen. She kept pleading, let's play, repeatedly. Since there was no helping it, I thought, let's stay here for a bit. The girl seemed to understand that and gave me a small smile while offering me her juggling balls. Now, what should I do? While pondering this, I reached out to accept them. And, just at that moment, from the back of the parlor, a voice that seemed like a mother's voice echoed, saying, "It's not good to keep playing." The instant that happened, the girl's smile vanished. She turned pale and seemed to try to hide behind me, Baba-kun. When I told her, "They're calling you. If you don't go, you'll be scolded," the girl began to tremble in fear and seemed on the verge of tears. And finally, the mother appeared from the corner of the room. She was dressed in a kimono and was slim. At first, it was not very clear from a distance, but as she approached, it became clear that she had a beautiful face. She seemed like a gentle mother. Thinking that, when I turned to look back, the girl had disappeared. Puzzled, I turned my gaze toward the mother. The face that was there a moment ago had completely changed and turned into that of a hanya, a demoness. Captured by fear, I thought I had to escape. Just as I had that thought, I woke up from the dream. When Baba-kun finished speaking, the band members came downstairs. They were heading out for a meeting about their live performance. As we started to prepare to leave as well, footsteps resounded from the ceiling. Or rather, from the 2nd floor. It sounded like someone was running around with a patter-patter sound. Everyone heard it, and for a moment, we all stopped moving and exchanged glances. Did you hear that? This is the 2nd time, right? No one's on the 2nd floor now, right? Baba-kun said, and all the members nodded. Chino-kun quickly added, adults would create a thumping sound, so that's definitely a child. In reality, if a child is running around on the 2nd floor, it would make a sound like that. There was silence for a while as we waited for the next sound, but we didn't hear any more footsteps. Everyone left, and we started preparing to go home as well. When I returned home, I examined the relationships using the photos and other materials. The main entity, wandering on the 1st floor is an avenging spirit from over 1,000 years ago. I will withhold what it is exactly, as it's dangerous to align frequencies carelessly. It's bound to this land but can occasionally venture elsewhere. Originally, it seems to be an evil spirit that came to this land burdened with karmic ties, possessing an unfortunate lineage. It caused the clan's gruesome deaths and formed a strong barrier, inadvertently cursing itself to the land. The negative barrier, with its suction force, pulls in anything it can capture. Numerous floating spirits of the victims were evident in the photos. Among them, there was a decisive capture. At one point, a mentally unstable resident did something incredibly terrible. When the estate was being renovated and the road deity obstructed their plans, they seemingly threw the stone Buddha into the well. In modern times, let alone in the past, it's unlikely an ordinary person would do something like that, indicating they must have been in a severely deranged state. As an added note, the well was later buried as it was. Inomoto-kun suggested that it might be a divine punishment, and that possibility is quite significant. Within the barrier centered around the main entity, the stone Buddha from the well transformed into a new potent core, effectively creating a sort of dual black hole. The mentioned young girl got entangled in these forces, belonging to a more recent lineage. She seems to be from about 100 or so years ago. Due to the wrath of the vengeful spirit, her mother suffered and endured a difficult life. She fell ill and passed away elsewhere, but her thoughts remained here. The aforementioned cat was the pet that the girl had loved. In any case, this is not something that can be cleansed easily. They should move out as soon as possible. I conveyed this to Baba-kun over the phone. However, it appears that they've used up their savings during their previous move and can't relocate immediately. Although they were also growing weary of the accumulating unsettling phenomena, they were willing to consult me, hoping that a purification ritual might resolve the situation. When I informed them, it's not possible, they understood and reluctantly agreed, promising to work hard, save money through part-time jobs, and expedite their move. About 2 months later, they managed to move. But during that time, they experienced significant losses due to complications caused by spiritual disturbances and strained relationships. Now, concerning us, we couldn't escape the influence of spiritual disturbances either. The next evening, I received a message from Inomoto-kun with the following content. After that incident, when I went to work, my master saw me and immediately said, "Where did you go?" in a stern tone. Then, he took me to the main hall and said, "Sit there, I'll purify you. It's hard to see what's behind you." So, he performed a purification ritual on me. It's common for wandering spirits to follow you around, but usually they naturally fade away while at the temple. It's rare for them to actually perform a purification ritual. After that, he said, "You're getting involved in something quite dangerous. Stop it." I showed him the pictures I had and explained what I knew. The results of his assessment were: the Jizo statue wasn't given a proper soul release and was discarded and buried. There's an underground water vein beneath it, and the Jizo statue is covered in mud. As a result, this land has been subjected to divine punishment, and subsequently, its nature has reversed, transforming it into the dwelling of vengeful spirits. Furthermore, there are victims of gruesome murders, and the karmic ties of violence are intense. Just losing consciousness is enough for these vengeful spirits to attack. While there are paper talismans affixed in one room, they are entirely ineffective. While it might be possible to confront the vengeful spirits at the risk of one's life, there's no way to mitigate the divine punishment. Being involved with this place is akin to sacrificing one's life. Even if asked, I would absolutely decline. Dealing with things that have come out or have latched on and performing exorcisms or dispelling is feasible, but spiritual purification is difficult. Moreover, purifying the land is an impossible task. Leave it undisturbed. There's no divine retribution if you don't interfere. You must pull away as soon as possible, otherwise, your life is at stake. Even being one of Japan's top priests, the current situation is likely beyond possibility. If you're prepared to dig up and overhaul the entire area, there might be some potential, but still, I can't see any benefits in putting one's life on the line to purify it. Furthermore, the root cause of this land becoming what it is goes back even before Japanese history. Of course, there's no necessity to investigate that. Such spots exist here and there, so be cautious. However, there is some kind of karmic connection that leads individuals to be ensnared by these types of lands. For outsiders, it might be considered a valuable experience, but for those directly involved residents it's an invitation to death. If you don't recognize the karmic ties, you'll likely be drawn back somewhere else in the future. When moving, sprinkle coarse salt on all your furniture and receive purification prayers as soon as possible. This is what he conveyed. It's best to cut ties before the situation becomes deadly. Inomoto-kun also shared his thoughts with me in addition to the information mentioned above. I conveyed this information to Chino-kun. We discussed not going back anymore, but in reality, an issue came up. A week later, we ended up visiting the place once more, just one last time. Leaving that aside, the negative effects persisted for a while. The most frequent occurrence at my home was in my brother's room. Even though no one should be there, there was a sense of someone's presence. I even heard faint murmurs of voices. It seemed to be related to some wandering spirit. When I turned on the lights or mentally said, "Go away," it quickly disappeared. This happened once or twice a week. Also, while I was reciting sutras, I felt a presence behind me. Moreover, I sensed a tingling feeling, as if goosebumps were forming. This happened a few times. This wasn't the core entity, main spirit, but rather an attached spirit, minion. As I continued my recitations with determination, it eventually faded away. I only wished for them to depart. I never attempted to cleanse them. Handling these attached spirits can be managed to some extent. But if you intervene, they multiply like vines, and eventually, you might end up in contact with the core entity. Spiritual purification is a daunting task. The negative effects also affected Chino-kun. He mentioned that when he returned from work and dozed off, he felt as if he was sitting on a tatami mat. When he thought it was an eerie feeling, he began to see his surroundings. It seemed to resemble that large room from Bamba-kun's dream that he had talked about. Chino-kun anticipated the appearance of the girl and the terrifying mother from that dream. However, there was no sign of their presence. While he considered it to be a dream and thought about waking up, suddenly, footsteps approaching from the back of the room became audible. The mother with the Hanya mask. He felt an indescribable sense of fear. Yet, what appeared was not the mother. Exclamation mark. At this point, Chino-kun didn't know that it was the core entity. However, he saw it. He saw it. It gradually approached. Overwhelmed by fear, he desperately cried out, "Oh God, Buddha! Grandpa! Yuwa!" By a hair's breadth, his prayer seemed to have worked. He somehow managed to wake up from the dream. Chino-kun immediately contacted me. When I listened to his account, his description of the core entity was even more vivid than I had imagined. I will refrain from sharing the details in this context. Please understand all. When I conveyed to him that it was the core entity, he was taken aback and exclaimed, "Geez. That thing that tries to attack? Seriously?" He remained speechless for a while. Fortunately, he only had this one dream experience. Combining my perspective with Chino-kun's account, it was terrifying, to the point that I don't want to recall it even now. Actually, I'm avoiding writing about it myself. The negative effects manifested in physical symptoms as well. Personally, I experienced peculiar sensations like heavy shoulders and numb fingertips. Of course, these were caused by the transparent visitors. Normally, I could easily fend them off or shake them away. However, they tend to target times when I'm dozing off on the train after work or when I'm tired, so I ended up carrying them unintentionally. Since these types are only wandering spirits, it's easy to drop them. But until they're dropped, I suffer from nauseating shoulder tension. If I were to fall ill due to this shoulder tension, it would be playing into their hands. So, I became unusually meticulous about my health management. Moreover, during that time, I experienced sleep paralysis more frequently than usual. I was visited by it 2 or 3 times consecutively. My younger brother, Daisuke, also experienced a resurgence of back pain he had suffered from in the past. It was a recurrence of symptoms that had been absent for over a decade. He already had a pre-existing connection to some kind of fate, and they took advantage of that to latch onto his back pain. Poking at weaknesses is their usual modus operandi. When I had Daisuke lie face down for a checkup, only his lower back area felt warmer, as if energy was being drained from there. After purifying and releasing the visitors, promoting energy flow, the pain would disappear. However, a few days later, it would resurface. So, he would return home, and I would restore the energy circulation for him. In essence, it was a cycle of experiencing pain and then relief. This continued until everyone cut ties with that place. Nonetheless, this experience became a turning point for him to clearly recognize his vulnerabilities and connections to fate. Since then, he adopted a much humbler way of thinking. Well, regarding Chino-kun, Despite his frightening experience, it seems he was affected the least. He only had minor shoulder tension and nasal congestion. This is likely due to his strong protective aura. Now, for the final call. About a week after the second visit to Bamba-kun's house, Daisuke and Inomoto-kun unexpectedly came to my place while Chino-kun was there. Naturally, it turned into an impromptu strategy meeting for retreating from the haunted house. The conclusion was to sever all connections from the influence and thoroughly purify the connections. We decided to disengage entirely. Just when we made up our minds, the phone rang. It was a call from Bamba-kun. He told us, "The situation has worsened. Can you come over immediately? The atmosphere inside the house is unsettling, and the band is on the brink of splitting up." Of course, I was inclined to decline, but Bamba-kun's plea was forceful. In other words, I couldn't refuse outright. So, Chino-kun and I decided to head out together. Daisuke and Inomoto-kun remained on standby, prepared for any situation. Before departing, Inomoto-kun gave us a warning. "There's something you might see, and it's very dangerous. However, it's easy to mistake, to misinterpret, so I can't tell you what it is. Revealing it might actually be perilous. If you go without knowing, you'll probably recognize it the moment you see it. It's an immobile object. Please be careful. Oh, by the way, I have a talisman that works well, I'll lend it to you." I didn't understand what the object he was talking about could be. Chino-kun borrowed the talisman and wore it, and I refreshed myself with a shower and focused my resolve. Around 9 p.m., we set off in the car. Looks like we're being drawn back to that place. It's like, come here, like it's beckoning with its hand. Probably, Bamba-kun is also being enticed, and he's acting as the intermediary to draw us in. As for what's dangerous, well, the thing that requires the most caution is probably driving to and from there. If it's easy to cut through a body, the quickest way would be a traffic accident. As I spoke, I concentrated on safe driving. Chino-kun, in the passenger seat, maintained a serious expression. He occasionally offered advice and seemed to focus on the driving as if he himself were gripping the steering wheel. As we neared Bamba-kun's house, tension escalated. Chino-kun seemed to feel the same way. In his words, "Venturing deep into enemy territory. Sounds exciting in movies, but it's different in reality. The shivers down the spine are the same, but the tension is intense. Nerves are taut like a drum. Goosebumps have been constant." That's how things felt. And then, just a couple of minutes away from our destination, we encountered a roadblock due to ongoing construction. The sign advised us to take a detour. Well, this is just great. Why does construction have to happen at a time like this? Chino-kun grumbled, but such obstacles tend to arise precisely at times like this. There's a detour route marked in the shape of a character. Let's follow it carefully. I followed the arrows and steered the wheel to the right. According to the instructions, I turned left at the upcoming intersection, just as indicated on the detour map. Another left turn after that, and we should intersect with the original road again. After about 300 meters, the pavement abruptly ended, turning into a gravel road. Could be risky. I became cautious. However, after a short distance, we returned to a paved road. Feeling relieved, I looked ahead and saw a white car parked on the roadside. A sense of unease washed over me, so I slowed down and approached cautiously. The unease intensified. Something's off. Should we turn back? As I voiced my thoughts, Chino-kun agreed. Given the narrow road, we began looking for a place to make a U-turn. The area beyond the white car seemed to widen slightly. I continued driving forward, getting within about 4 to 5 meters of the white car. Then, I tilted the headlights upward to illuminate the car. It seemed like an abandoned vehicle. The front windshield was shattered, and vines were entwined around the body. At that moment, a shiver ran down my spine. It felt wise not to get any closer. Just as I was about to hit the brakes, Chino-kun shouted, "Oh no. Stop. Go back." Chino-kun seemed to sense the same thing. "Let's reverse. Keep an eye on that side of the road." I backed up the car and quickly drove through the gravel path. Once we returned to the pavement, the road width expanded a bit, allowing us to perform a U-turn safely. When we retraced our steps, we came across another detour route along the way. It appeared to be an unpaved road, and we had mistaken it for an alley earlier. We had overlooked it before. While examining the road, a small local truck, seemingly driven by a local resident, approached from the direction of the roadblock. The truck then turned onto that road. We should follow that. After driving behind the truck for about a minute, we reached the original road and soon spotted Bomba-kun's house. Upon arrival, I first asked Bomba-kun about the road we had taken earlier, drawing a diagram and indicating the position of the abandoned car. Huh? That road should have led straight into the highway wall, becoming a dead end. You didn't see the highway barrier or anything? I've never been there myself, though. But, you know, those roads in that area can have fields on both sides. If the roadside crumbles, you could get stuck. It seemed Bomba-kun was unaware of that particular detail. Then, Goto-kun, a member of the band, chimed in. Did you say there's a road beyond that abandoned car? I've actually ridden my bike into that road. The road ends at the abandoned car. And beyond that should be overgrown with bushes. It was daytime when I went, so I could see clearly around. But it's strange. Just about 10 meters right by the abandoned car was paved, not with asphalt, but with concrete. Oh, and by the way, wasn't there an old decrepit building nearby? It looked like a haunted house. I guess at night, you wouldn't notice. But yeah, it's definitely an eerie place. Maybe there are graves there? I recalled Inomoto-kun's words and borrowed the phone. Hey, Daiki, can you switch with Inomoto-kun? Oh, Inomoto-kun? Could it be, the object you mentioned was a car? Yes, that's right. You saw it too? For me, it was a white car parked there. There was an incredibly strong spiritual energy, so if you get close, you might get ensnared. But you realized it pretty quickly, didn't you? Oh, you actually got that close to it? Wow, that was risky. Being around there weakens or clouds your ability to see, so please be careful. I didn't mention it earlier because white cars are everywhere, and focusing on all of them might make you miss it, which could be more dangerous. Unfortunately, the truth of this location remains unknown. There was no opportunity to verify it afterward, and I didn't feel the need to do so either. It seems undeniable that there is some connection to Bomba-kun's house. Despite being cautious not to be affected by spiritual disturbances, it felt like the negative energy of the land had a strong grip on us. After the other band members had gone out for a late-night snack, Bomba-kun began to speak. The phenomena that occurred during this week that he described were as follows. 3 days ago, during a rainstorm, lightning struck nearby, causing the data of the synthesizer and sequencer to be wiped out. Especially the synthesizer was completely unusable and needed replacement. For the time being, they managed with rentals, but it was an extra expense that disrupted their budgeting for moving expenses. Depending on the situation, they might have to give up on next month's live performance. Ojama-kun, the guitarist and arranger, has been involved with a married woman Ikue-san, and as a result, his enthusiasm for music has shifted in a different direction. It seems he's been approached by other bands. Note, since there was a photo of Ikue-san, he showed it to me, and it turns out she has quite a background. After receiving an unnecessary photo from her collection and showing it to Inomoto-kun. Look at her eyes. She's not human. She's being manipulated. That was Inomoto-kun's impression. I found out later that the real estate agent who mediated Bomba-kun's house introduction was recommended by Ikue-san. Maybe they profit from frequent property turnover with hefty deposits. Since not sleeping on the first floor, they haven't had the recurring dream. However, when sleeping on the second floor, they've started feeling a weight on their chest. It's not a heavy sensation, and it disappears when they open their eyes. Could it be that child? Note correct. After laying out the futon and going downstairs for a while, when returning, they felt as if someone was inside the futon. When touching the sheets, there was a faint residual dampness, like after sweating during sleep. They heard the sound of someone going up and down the stairs twice. Both times were around 2 a.m. Walking around the perimeter of the house, they felt a sensation as if their feet were being grabbed, slowing down their steps. In a daze, they found their feet immobilized, and when they snapped out of it, they were standing frozen in place. And this is what each of the band members experienced several times over the course of the week. I spoke sternly to Bomba-kun, saying, regardless, your life is at stake here, so prioritize moving. You won't be able to do any music activities if you're dead. While you're here, everything will backfire. I won't be coming back here either. If I do, it might be the last time. The next time we meet will be when I go for the purification. I continued to give him various instructions regarding the move for about 30 more minutes before making my way back. As I was leaving, about 10 meters away from the house, I performed the kuji hand gesture. When I looked back, that withered tree was strangely swaying back and forth. Within 2 months, they managed to move out, in other words, escape. Some dead remained, but it was fortunate that nothing serious happened. However, the band disbanded. Hayama-kun joined another band, and Bamba-kun along with the bassist Goto-kun started forming a new band. At this point, there's something that bothers me. Everyone involved except for Hayama-kun and Ikue-san underwent purification right in front of me. However, only those two went to a different place, apparently a shrine, to be purified. Since then, we haven't had any connection with them, so I can't say for certain if they've completely severed their ties. Well, I haven't heard any bad rumors about them not coming back, so they probably haven't died or anything. The issue is how much Hayama-kun will be consumed by Ikue-san. Namandabu. Caution. After reading this story, it often happens that floating spirits move around in the vicinity. However, these occurrences are largely unrelated to the story. If you shift your awareness from the entity to yourself, you can easily disconnect from them. In other words, it means they will disappear if you don't pay them any mind. Nevertheless, for those who might be more sensitive, here is a protective chant. It has an effect of strengthening your own energy. Please chant the following words 3 times or strongly visualize them in your mind. Gyate, Gyate, Hara Gyate, Harasu Gyate, Buji Soakaha. This may help to enhance your own energy and provide protection from negative influences in your surroundings. However, please note that this is just one example of a method to support faith and mental well-being. So it's important to use it in accordance with your individual beliefs and feelings. How was it? If you have any other stories you would like me to introduce or any questions about the stories, please leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next episode.